On the eve of Epiphany, January 6th, 1601, the grand halls of Whitehall Palace buzzed with anticipation. Queen Elizabeth I was hosting her court for a night of lavish celebration. This was no ordinary evening. It was Twelfth Night, the culmination of the Christmas season, a time for revelry, feasting and entertainment. As the final hours of the Christmas season dwindled, the air crackled with excitement. The grand hall, adorned with festive decorations, awaited the arrival of the Queen and her guests. The aroma of roasted meats, spiced wine and sweet treats wafted through the palace, promising a feast fit for royalty. Musicians tuned their instruments, their melodies blending in anticipation of the evening's performance. Whitehall Palace was aglow with candlelight, transformed into a magical realm, ready to transport the Queen and her court to a world of seasonal merriment, and the court playwright had a trick up his sleeve.
Like the Roman feast of Saturnalia, which it replaced, Twelfth Night was a time to cast aside the rigid protocols of courtly life. A Lord of Misrule was appointed to oversee the transformation from an orderly court to a topsy-turvy world of imagination. Dressed colourfully, with bells tied to their legs, they would go to the church dancing and swinging their handkerchiefs.
Lewes Lewkenor was assigned to accompany the gallant nephew of the Grand Duke of Tuscany, Don Virginio Orsino, Duke of Brachiano. And it was Orsino who was about to become the centre of attention in a most unexpected way. Queen Elizabeth desired a truly spectacular celebration. She had commissioned a new play for the occasion, a comedy to delight and amuse her court, filled with music by her favourite singer, John Hales. It is clear from Elizabeth's instructions why the play bore the title Twelfth Night, or What You Will. It was the Queen's will. Her desire had been stipulated to the Lord Chamberlain, George Carey,
to confer with my Lord Admiral and the Master of the Revels for taking order generally with the players to make choice of the play that shall be best furnished with rich apparel, have great variety and change of music and dances, and of a subject that may be most pleasing to her Majesty. And Hales to have one place expressly to show his own voice. Send for the musicians of the city to be ready to attend. The children of the chapel are to come before the Queen at dinner with a carol. Music severally for the Queen and some for the play in the hall.
The task of staging a play at such short notice fell to the Lord Chamberlain's men, the Queen's favourite acting company and the most renowned troupe in the land. At their helm was the great tragedian Richard Burbage, ably assisted by John Hemmings, Henry Condell, the clown Will Kemp and William Shakespeare. The Lord Chamberlain instructed that
the Lord Darcy be warned to fetch the Duke of Brachiano, accompanied with Mr. Cecil, Mr. Lewkenor, Mr. Edward Gorge and Mr. Buck, to bring him to the court presently after 11 o'clock. And all these required to accompany him during his abode in the court, and those that brought him to carry him back that night.
The Queen's servants scurried about, ensuring every detail was perfect. Costumes were designed, sets were built, and lines were rehearsed under the watchful eye of the Master of Revels and the Lord Chamberlain. The author faced a daunting task. He had mere days to craft a play that would meet the Queen's expectations and captivate her court. With each stroke of his pen, a world of mistaken identities, romantic entanglements, and comedic chaos began to take shape. Certainly the playwright commissioned to write the entertainment had enough information to pen a play that combined Duke Orsino with English courtly puns aimed at Sir Christopher Hatton, Sir Thomas Posthumous Hoby, and the recently deceased Lord Burleigh. The author gives us an insight into the process of staging such an auspicious event.
This fellow is wise enough to play the fool, and to do that well craves a kind of wit. He must observe their mood, on whom he jests, the quality of persons and the time, and like the haggard check at every feather that comes before his eye. This is a practice as full of labour as a wise man's art, for folly that he wisely shows is fit, but wise men folly fall and quite taint their wit.
He drew inspiration from the festive spirit of Twelfth Night, and decided now was a good time to mock some of the most pompous luminaries at court. Leslie Hodson saw a clear parody of Sir William Knollys in the Puritan character of Malvolio, a name that means ill will. Knollys was a staunch enemy of Catholics and the theatre alike, and it is clear the playwright had a bone to pick with him. Sir Toby Belch.
Possess us, tell us something of him.
Maria.
Marry, sir. Sometimes he is a kind of Puritan. The devil, a Puritan that he is, or anything constantly but a time-pleaser, an affectioned ass that can state without book, and utters it by great swaths. The best persuaded of himself, so crammed as he thinks with excellencies, that it is his grounds of faith that all that look on him love him. And on that vice in him will my revenge find notable cause to work. I will drop in his way some obscure epistles of love, wherein by the colour of his beard, the shape of his leg, the manner of his gait, the expression of his eye, forehead and complexion, he shall find himself most feelingly personated.
The Puritan Knollys was comptroller of the Queen's household who hailed from Banbury, famous for its cakes and ale. The playwright chided him from the stage.
Just because thou art virtuous, shall there be no more cakes and ale?
Knollys had been the centre of court gossip for his ham-fisted attempt to woo Mary Mall-Fitton. In a story that would make the plot for a romantic farce, he was truly gulled and ridiculed. A botched attempt to dye his beard, which went from white at his chin to yellow in the middle to dyed black at its tip, earned him the nickname of Party Beard, as Sir Toby reminds the court.
Are they like to take dust, like Mistress Moll's picture?
This cheeky line in the first act is perhaps a reference to the episode. Sir Thomas Posthumous Hoby may also have been part of the make-up of Malvolio. He had recently been involved in a court case after his Yorkshire neighbours turned up at his house uninvited and proceeded to get drunk, play cards, and when he protested, they threatened to rape his wife. We are given a few religious hints in the scene that would have caught the ear of the audience. Sir Toby Belch calls out.
Marion, I say, a stoup of wine.
A Marian or Catholic, and the association of communion wine would have been obvious. The scene of the Puritan master entering his house to find his neighbours making merry would have had the Queen and her courtiers in stitches. Malvolio.
My masters, are you mad, or what are you? Have you no wit, manners, nor honesty, but to gabble like tinkers at this time of night? Do you make an alehouse of my lady's house, that ye squeak out your cosier's catches without any mitigation or remorse of voice? Is there no respect of place, persons, nor time in you?
On the day of the performance, Lewis accompanied Don Virginio to the Palace of Whitehall, where he was to be entertained in the great chamber by the Chamberlain's men, led by Burbage and Shakespeare.
And for the Duke of Brachiano, Seigneur Virginio Orsino, were sent the Earl of Rutland and his brethren, the Lord Darcy, the Lord Sands, and others who met him at the court gate, he being thither brought by Mr. William Cecil and others. The Queen's Majesty came forth to the closet, and after a while proceeded to the chapel and offered the gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and so departed to her chamber, accompanied with the Duke by her. In the interim, the great chamber on the other side towards the terrace was prepared with an estate and 2 cupboards of plate therein, where her Majesty dined.
Don Virginio wrote to his wife,
The Queen came to the door, and I presently approached with all humility to do her reverence. And she drew near me with most gracious cheer, speaking Italian so well, uttering with all such fine conceits, that I can maintain that I might have been taking lessons from Boccaccio or the Academy. Her Majesty was dressed all in white, with so many pearls, broideries, and diamonds, that I am amazed how she could carry them. Those gentlemen who were appointed to wait upon me, with many others whose acquaintance I had made, conducted me to my lodging so that I might rest myself. But after a little while the chief of the acquaintances began coming to visit me, and then there was music, of some instruments to my belief never heard in Italy, but miraculous ones, so that with good entertainment we came to the hour of supper.
The playwright was about to pull off a theatrical first that would wow his audience, as the Queen and her court settled down with their visitor in eager anticipation. Their collective jaws would have hit the floor as the Duke himself appeared on the stage. A murmur ran around the court as the very mirror image of their honoured guest stepped forward, dressed identically to the Duke and mimicked with consummate art by Burbage. He opened his mouth and began to speak.
If music be the food of love, play on. The appetite may sicken and so die.
Don Virginio continues, but sadly skips the details of the play.
As soon as Her Majesty was set at her place, many ladies and knights began a grand ball. When this came to an end, there was acted a mingled comedy, with pieces of music and dances, and this too I am keeping to tell by word of mouth. She conversed continually with me, and when the comedy was finished, I waited upon her to her lodgings, where there was made ready for her Majesty and for the ladies a most fair collation, all of confections. The Queen, having first taken 2 morsels, gave order that it should all be put to the spoil, which was done amid a graceful confusion. After the Queen had gone into her chamber, those ladies who could speak Italian and French fell into conversation with me, and at the end of half an hour we took our leave of one another, and I went away home, it being already 2 hours after midnight.
Section 5. Twelfth Night at the Middle Temple. Anthony Arledge, QC, has studied the play and discovered a second performance held a year later at the Middle Temple, complete with the added legal jokes tailored for its audience.
The treasurer of the inn, John Shirley, was vying for a promotion to sergeant at law, and as part of his campaign to win the post, he hosted a lavish celebration by staging Twelfth Night. This key piece of information tells us that the play was actually amended for a specific occasion, with the writer having foreknowledge of his audience.
On the 2nd of February 1602, a young barrister, John Manningham, attended a play at the Candlemas Revels, held at the new hall of Middle Temple. The play took his fancy.
At our feast, we had a play called Twelfth Night, or What You Will, much like the Comedy of Errors. A good practice in it to make the steward believe his lady widow was in love with him, by counterfeiting a letter as from his lady in general terms, telling him what she liked best in him, and prescribing his gesture in smiling, his apparel, etc. And then, when he came to practice, making him believe they took him for mad.
Lewkenor was a Middle Temple alumni, and the Shirleys and Lewkenors had long-established family connections. Lewes Lewkenor and the treasurer. John Shirley also sat on a committee in Parliament in June 1604. Their ancestor Sir Hugh Shirley appears in Henry IV, fighting for the king at Shrewsbury. Prince Henry.
The spirits of valiant Shirley Stafford Blunt are in my arms.
Anthony Shirley's Persian exploits to the court of Shah Abbas would become the stuff of legend, a tale of cultural exchange and political intrigue that highlighted the global aspirations of England during the Age of Exploration. His travels are mentioned in the play when Sir Toby Belch declares,
"Why, man, he's a very devil. I have not seen such a farrago. I had a pass with him, rapier, scabbard and all, and he gives me the stuck in with such a mortal motion that it is inevitable. And on the answer, he pays you as surely as your feet hit the ground they step on. They say he has been fencer to the Sophie."
Fabian.
I will not give my part of this sport for a pension of thousands to be paid from the Sophie.
The intrepid Shirleys. Anthony and Robert, the Elizabethan era's answer to Indiana Jones, minus the whip and fedora, but with an equal penchant for international intrigue and Persian escapades. The Venetian ambassador describes Shirley's audience with the king and Lewkenor's relationship.
On Saturday morning, Lewkenor came to fetch me and accompany me to Hampton Court and back to London. I received marks of special favour. The question of Shirley's audience came up. He claims to be admitted as ambassador of the King of Persia. After many difficulties, the Earl allowed him to have audience and agreed that he should go as he chose, though at first the Persian dress was vetoed. Lewkenor did all he could to help Shirley, who is a relation.
Sir Toby Belch uses the phrase Castigliano vulgo to address his old friend and drinking partner, Sir Andrew Aguacheek. This isn't a drinking toast, but a nod to soldiers fighting the Spanish in the Low Countries, where the phrase Castilians are everywhere was followed by spitting, as Lewes Lewkenor explains.
If any one of them had but chanced to name a Castilian, he would presently have spat, as the common sort usually do when they speak of the devil, to cleanse his mouth after the pronouncing of so hateful a word.
The playwright had skillfully woven music, dance and visual splendour into the fabric of his play, ensuring it would please his queen. But he had also clearly mocked several courtiers, taking particular aim at the Puritans. That was taking a risk, even under the cover of Twelfth Night. Lewkenor's attendance in the company of the play's intended recipient, Orsino, is scant proof of his authorship of Twelfth Night, but it is a solid case for him having been at the play's premiere. His personal connection to his cousin, John Shirley of the Middle Temple, which he had attended, present an opportunity for Lewkenor to be involved in rewriting the play to entertain the young lawyers. It paints another fascinating picture of Lewes Lewkenor being at the performance, having some internal influence on the text, and intimately involved with the people staging the play. We'll examine more evidence in the next video.
Thanks for watching. For more information on Lewes Lewkenor, please see The Master of the Ceremonies by William Corbett, available from Amazon. For further videos examining Lewes Lewkenor as the author of Shakespeare's plays, please continue to watch the channel.